Before we begin, I want you to understand one thing. You don't owe anyone an explanation for who you are. Too many people walk through life trying to justify their worth, seeking approval, validation, or permission. Not today. Today, we're going to talk about reclaiming your power, standing firm in your identity, and learning to operate from strength, not insecurity, because the moment you stop trying to prove yourself to others, you finally start living for yourself. Stop seeking validation. Stand firm in who you are. That sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest behavioral shifts a person can make because validation is addictive. From childhood, we're taught to earn approval from parents, teachers, friends, and later from partners, bosses, and society. Without realizing it, we start to measure our worth by how people react to us. A compliment feels like proof that we matter. A criticism feels like evidence that we're not enough. So we chase validation like oxygen, believing our identity is only real when someone else acknowledges it. But the truth is, every time you seek validation from others, you give them power over your life. You let their opinions determine your confidence, your choices, and your emotional state. You live reactively, always adjusting yourself so you can be liked, accepted, or praised. And nothing is more exhausting or more limiting than living for approval. Standing firm in who you are begins with the ability to sit with your own choices without needing someone to clap for them. It's choosing to trust your judgment even when others disagree. It's allowing yourself to make decisions based on your values, not someone else's expectations. When you stop seeking validation, you stop negotiating your truth, and that shift changes everything: your posture, your presence, your communication, your resilience. People feel it. They see it in the way you speak. Clear, steady, without desperation. Confident people don't oversell themselves. They don't seek permission. They don't ask, "Is this okay?" every time they want to take a step forward. They move with intention because they know who they are and what they stand for. And even if others don't understand them, they remain grounded in their purpose. The biggest trap of validation seeking is that it creates a false sense of security. It feels good in the moment, but it makes you dependent. You start tailoring your behavior to keep the approval flowing, saying yes when you want to say no, staying silent to avoid discomfort, performing instead of being authentic. This kind of living shrinks you. It's like wearing armor that weighs you down, making you smaller, quieter, and more compliant. Standing firm in who you are requires removing that armor piece by piece. It means tolerating the discomfort of being misunderstood. It means accepting that not everyone will like you, not everyone will support you, and not everyone will agree with you. And that is not only okay, it's necessary. Greatness has always been inconvenient for the people who prefer comfort. Strength has always been threatening to those who benefit from your silence. When you no longer need validation, something powerful happens. You start validating yourself. You recognize your own progress even when others don't see it. You appreciate your own strengths without needing someone else to confirm them. You learn from your mistakes without collapsing under shame. You become your own source of stability, which means no one can take that stability away from you. That's real confidence, not the loud, performative kind, but the quiet, unshakable kind that comes from self-respect. Standing firm also means setting standards and refusing to lower them just to be accepted. People may push back when they can no longer control you with disappointment or criticism. They may call you arrogant, stubborn, or difficult. But understand, people don't react to who you are. They react to what they lose when you stop needing them. The stronger you become, the more clearly you see who truly belongs in your life. Those who value authenticity will respect you. Those who relied on your insecurity will fall away, and that's the point. When you stop seeking validation, you stop attracting relationships built on imbalance and start attracting connections built on mutual respect. Being grounded in who you are frees you. It lets you move through the world with clarity, purpose, and peace, knowing that your worth is not up for negotiation. Protect your energy by choosing your battles wisely. Not everything deserves your reaction, your time, or your emotional investment. Most people drain themselves not because life is overwhelming, but because they give their attention to every small irritation, every opinion, every criticism, every conflict that crosses their path. When you respond to everything, you exhaust yourself. When you respond to the right things, you empower yourself. Protecting your energy means becoming intentional about where you place your focus and what you allow to influence your inner state. Every day you wake up with a limited amount of mental, emotional, and physical energy. If you spend it all on trivial arguments, unnecessary drama, or people who thrive on conflict, you leave yourself with nothing for your goals, your growth, or your peace. Choosing your battles wisely requires emotional discipline. It means you don't react purely because you feel triggered. You pause, you analyze, you ask yourself, is this worth it? Does this move me forward? Does this matter in the long run? Does this align with who I want to be? Most of the time, the answer is no. Most of the things that provoke you are distractions disguised as urgency. A rude comment, a sarcastic remark, someone's unnecessary criticism. These are invitations to drain your energy. And every time you accept that invitation, you hand your power over to someone who likely doesn't even have to live with the consequences of your emotional exhaustion. Protecting your energy is the decision to stop letting every disruption pull you out of alignment. It is the understanding that inner peace is not something you find, it's something you guard. There is strength in restraint. Not every insult requires a rebuttal. Not every disagreement needs resolution. Not every person who challenges you deserves your engagement. Sometimes the most powerful response is silence, distance, or emotional neutrality. When you conserve your energy for what truly matters, you become sharper, more focused, and more resilient. You stop leaking energy into situations that don't contribute to your growth. You stop allowing people to pull you into their chaos, and you begin to build a life based on intentionality rather than reactivity. You recognize the difference between battles worth fighting and battles meant to distract you. Worthy battles are aligned with your principles, your purpose, and your long-term goals. Unworthy battles are rooted in ego, insecurity, or other people's agendas. Protecting your energy is also about understanding your emotional triggers. People who know how to provoke you gain power over you. People who know how to destabilize you can manipulate you. When you understand your triggers, you become less reactive and more strategic. You start to see emotional provocation for what it is, a test of self-control. Many conflicts only escalate because someone loses control of their emotions, but when you maintain composure, when you stay grounded, you shift the dynamic. You move from being controlled to being in control. You conserve energy that others expect you to waste. Choosing your battles wisely doesn't make you passive, it makes you effective. It means you respond when the outcome matters, when the principle is important, when your boundary is at stake, or when silence would compromise your integrity. You learn to engage with clarity rather than impulse. You learn to protect your mental state from unnecessary disturbances. You understand that reacting to everything is a sign of weakness, but choosing your moments is a sign of maturity and strength. When you guard your energy, you elevate your life. You create space for what truly matters, your goals, your peace, your growth, your relationships. You create boundaries that prevent emotional burnout. You build a life where your attention is directed toward what nourishes you instead of what drains you. And over time, you become someone who doesn't just survive the chaos of life, but someone who moves through it with purpose, composure, and undeniable power. Confidence comes from discipline, not approval. Most people confuse confidence with praise, applause, or being told they're good enough. But real confidence has nothing to do with how loudly others celebrate you. It comes from what you repeatedly prove to yourself when no one is watching. Discipline builds evidence that you can commit, follow through, endure discomfort, and do what you said you would do even when the motivation fades. Approval is borrowed, discipline is earned. Approval depends on other people's moods and opinions. Discipline depends on your choices. When your confidence is rooted in discipline, It becomes unshakable because no one can take away what you've built within yourself. Discipline is the act of showing up consistently. It's waking up early to work on your goals even when the bed feels comfortable. It's choosing the harder path when the easier one tempts you with instant gratification. It's saying no to distractions, excuses, and temporary pleasures in order to say yes to something bigger. Every disciplined decision strengthens your identity. Every time you push through resistance, you reinforce the belief that you are capable. And that belief is where confidence grows. People who rely on approval constantly question themselves because the validation they depend on can disappear in a second. People who rely on discipline don't collapse when others doubt them because they have already witnessed their own strength. They've built a foundation through repeated action, commitment, and self-control. Discipline also teaches resilience. When you hold yourself accountable, you learn how to face difficulty without falling apart. You stop fearing failure because you know you have the ability to get back up. You stop fearing judgment because you know your worth isn't tied to external praise. You stop fearing challenges because discipline trains you to handle discomfort. Confidence isn't the absence of fear, it's the result of moving through fear with structure and consistency. It's the quiet assurance that comes from doing the work day after day until your identity aligns with your effort. Confidence built on discipline is not flashy, and it doesn't need to be. It's steady, grounded, and self-sustaining. When you depend on approval, your life becomes reactive. You wait for someone to tell you your work is good before you believe in it. You wait for someone to validate your dreams before you pursue them. You wait for permission to take risks, speak up, or make changes. But when your confidence comes from discipline, you stop waiting. You already trust your preparation. You already trust your effort. You already trust your growth. Discipline frees you from the need for external reassurance because you've created internal certainty. You don't need applause to feel proud, and you don't need permission to take action. You begin to move with a sense of ownership of your choices, your path, your identity. Discipline also creates consistency, and consistency creates momentum. With enough momentum, even small actions compound into powerful results. This compounding effect strengthens your confidence more than any compliment ever could. The more you follow through on your commitments, the more you trust yourself. The more you trust yourself, the more confidently you act, and the more confidently you act, the more doors you open. Approval might make you feel good for a moment, but it doesn't push you forward. Discipline does. It shapes your character, sharpens your skills, and builds a reputation you can stand on. It gives you something solid to return to when doubt creeps in. Confidence built on discipline doesn't fluctuate with criticism. It doesn't crumble under pressure. It doesn't vanish when someone disapproves. It becomes a core part of who you are. It turns you into someone whose self-belief isn't fragile or negotiable, someone who doesn't need to prove anything because their actions speak louder than any opinion. Someone who moves through the world with quiet strength, knowing their confidence is rooted in effort, consistency, and unbreakable discipline. Set boundaries without apologizing for them. Most people struggle with boundaries because they're afraid of disappointing others, being misunderstood, or appearing difficult. They end up stretching themselves thin, agreeing to things they don't want, and taking on burdens that don't belong to them. But every time you say yes when you want to say no, you betray yourself. Boundaries are not walls, they are standards. They are the lines that protect your time, your energy, your values, and your emotional well-being. Without them, people will take more than they should, not because they're bad, but because you've taught them that your comfort is negotiable. When you set boundaries unapologetically, you reclaim control of your life. People often apologize for having boundaries because they don't want to seem selfish, but protecting your mental and emotional space isn't selfish, it's responsible. You cannot show up fully for others if you are constantly drained, resentful, or overextended. Boundaries allow you to give from a place of strength instead of depletion. They create balance in your relationships, clarity in your expectations, and peace in your daily life. When you communicate your boundaries without guilt, you demonstrate self-respect. And self-respect sets the tone for how others treat you. If you speak as though your needs are inconveniences, people will treat them that way. If you speak as though your needs are valid, they will be. Setting boundaries also reveals the nature of your relationships. Healthy people will respect them. People who benefit from your lack of boundaries will resist them. Pay attention to who pushes back. Their reaction tells you everything about their intentions. Boundaries don't ruin relationships. They expose the weak ones and strengthen the healthy ones. They filter out people who only value you when you make things easy for them. They bring closer the people who value mutual respect. When you establish boundaries firmly and calmly, you begin to see who is genuinely in your life because they care about you, and who is there because they care about what you provide. The challenge is not just setting boundaries, it's maintaining them. It's easy to set a boundary once. It's harder to reinforce it consistently, especially when others test it. But boundaries lose their power the moment you make exceptions out of guilt or fear. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. If you allow someone to repeatedly cross your limits, you signal that your boundaries are flexible, and once others sense that flexibility, they will push further. Maintaining boundaries requires strength, clarity, and emotional discipline. It requires you to be comfortable with someone else's discomfort. Not everyone will be happy with your boundaries, but their reaction is not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to protect your well-being. Unapologetic boundaries also help you stay aligned with your goals and priorities. Every time you say no to what drains you, you say yes to what builds you. You create space for your ambitions, your rest, your relationships, and your growth. You stop letting distractions and obligations pull you away from your purpose. Without boundaries, life becomes chaotic because everything feels urgent and everyone feels entitled to your time. With boundaries, you create structure, you create order, you create a life defined by intention rather than obligation. Setting boundaries without apologizing is ultimately about knowing your worth. When you understand your value, you stop shrinking yourself to make others comfortable. You stop feeling guilty for taking up space or needing time. You stop allowing guilt to override your peace. People may not always understand your boundaries, but they will come to respect them when you hold them consistently. And the more you practice setting them, the more natural it becomes to prioritize your well-being without hesitation. Boundaries give you the freedom to live authentically, protect your inner peace, and build relationships grounded in mutual respect and honesty. They are not acts of selfishness, but acts of self-leadership. Quiet, firm declarations that your life, your energy, and your mental clarity matter. Your value isn't measured by other people's opinions. Most people live their lives like a mirror, constantly reflecting back what others think of them, constantly adjusting their identity based on external reactions. They let compliments inflate them and criticism deflate them. They let someone else's perception decide whether they feel confident or insecure, worthy or inadequate. But opinions are unstable. They shift with time, emotion, misunderstanding, and personal bias. Building your self-worth on something so fragile is like building a house on sand. It collapses the moment the weather changes. Real value is internal. It comes from knowing who you are, what you stand for, and how you choose to show up in the world. It comes from character, not commentary. The moment you give others the power to define your worth, you also give them the power to destroy it. People will judge you no matter what you do. They will judge your silence and your voice, your dreams and your doubts, your strength and your vulnerability. Some will misunderstand you, some will envy you, some will minimize you, and some will project their insecurities onto you. But their opinions reflect them, not you. Their words reveal their mindset, their experiences, their fears, and their limitations. When someone says you can't do something, it usually means they can't. When someone belittles your ambition, it means your courage exposes their lack of it. When someone doubts you, it often reveals the boundaries of their own imagination. None of that has anything to do with your true value. Your worth is something you carry internally. It comes from the standards you hold yourself to, the discipline you practice, the intentions behind your actions, and the integrity with which you live. It is measured by your growth, your resilience, your compassion, and the way you rise after setbacks. Other people don't see your sacrifices, your inner battles, your quiet victories, or the strength it takes just to keep moving forward. They see snapshots, not the full picture. They see moments, not the journey. So why let their limited view define something so vast and personal? When you detach your worth from opinions, you become free. Free from the pressure to fit in, free from the fear of judgment, free from the need to perform. You stop living like a prisoner of other people's expectations and start living like the author of your own life. You begin to make decisions based on your values instead of approval. You take risks without waiting to be encouraged. You create, speak, and act without shrinking yourself to avoid criticism. The freedom that comes from self-defined worth is powerful. It shifts your posture, your confidence, your voice. You no longer move hesitantly, scanning the room for acceptance. You move with certainty because you carry your worth with you. Understanding your value also helps you choose better relationships. When you know your worth, you stop entertaining people who treat you like you're disposable. You stop tolerating disrespect, inconsistency, or emotional manipulation. You recognize the difference between someone who sees your worth and someone who only sees your usefulness. People who don't value themselves often accept treatment that is far below what they deserve. But once you understand your own value, you start demanding the kind of respect, loyalty, and support that aligns with your standards. You begin to attract people who appreciate your presence rather than exploit it. Your value is not up for negotiation. It doesn't decrease when someone fails to see it. It doesn't disappear when someone criticizes you. It doesn't increase when someone praises you. It is constant, inherent, and self-determined. People's opinions are noise, loud at times, distracting, unpredictable, but still just noise. Your value is the foundation beneath it all. And when you anchor yourself in that foundation, you become unshakable. You no longer chase validation because you already know who you are. You no longer fear judgment because you know it cannot change your truth. You walk through life with a calm, steady strength, knowing that your worth is yours and no one can take it away.